Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, The Medieval Reader. So I missed making a Medieval Monday video last week because I was having a lot of difficulties figuring out what kind of content I wanted to make. What topic did I want to really discuss? And so I decided to make things a little bit easier for myself. I thought I would pick one text and then spend a few weeks on that and then move on to something different. And so I decided to choose something that had the potential to have wide appeal, and that is Marco Polo's Travels. Now this is a 1958 edition translated by Ronald Latham. Translated from what? I'm assuming from French. It doesn't actually say. There are a number of manuscripts with some significant differences of Marco Polo's Travels, but it is believed that the Paris manuscript, I believe it's manuscript F, is considered the definitive one. So I'm assuming that Ronald Latham translated the Travels from French, but I'm not sure. There are Latin editions as well. It would make sense that the Travels would have been written in French originally because Marco Polo got help from a romance writer named Rustichello of Pisa, whom he met while he was imprisoned in Genoa. And the language of Arthurian romances was French, so it would make sense that the Travels were written in French. But we don't actually know which of the manuscripts was the first. I will be spending 4 Mondays on the Travels. So today I'll be talking about the prologue through chapter 2, which is called The Road to Cathay. November 19th, I will be talking about chapters 3 and 4, chapter 3 being on Kublai Khan, and chapter 4 being called From Peking to Bengal. November 26th, I will be talking about chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5 is From Peking to Amoy, and chapter 6 is From China to India. And then December 3rd, we'll be doing chapter 7, which is on India, till the end. This isn't an official read-along. I will kind of give you somewhat of a summary of what goes on. It's kind of hard to summarize what goes on because you have lots of descriptions of landscape, but I will pull out a few scenes that I find particularly interesting. Think about these videos as first impressions on this book. So if you are at all involved in the beauty community, if you watch some beauty videos, you'll know that first impressions videos are where beauty tubers will try on makeup for the first time. So it's their first impression of the makeup product. So their opinions can change afterward, but it still has some weight. So because I have never read Marco Polo's Travels myself, these videos will be my first impressions of this work. So, don't think about me as an expert on this. I think that one of the best ways to get into medieval writing is just to go for it. Just try it out and see what you find interesting. And then you can always pursue it further if, you want to. And this is highly readable. I mean, having read the prologue and the first 2 chapters, I have to say I was quite impressed by how entertaining it was. I was not bored for a moment. Yes, there are repetitive sentences. For example, there are descriptions of Muslims as worshippers of Muhammad, which of course is wrong, but that is how the quote-unquote Saracens are presented. Oftentimes, when introducing a group of people, Marco Polo, or at least the author of the Travels, writes, the inhabitants are all idolaters. And this is a line that's repeated again and again. I say the author of the Travels because whereas Marco Polo is considered the author, I don't know if he's the writer because Marco Polo is referred to by name in the text. So wasn't Rustichello of Pisa who wrote it. And if, as we know, a romance writer helped write these Travels, how much of it is true? It does appear that Marco Polo was a diplomat in Kublai Khan's court and that he most likely traveled in India. But there are a lot of details that, we don't know whether they're true or not. There are certainly tropes from the Arthurian romance tradition in the Travels, So what does that mean? And this is very, very common. Lots of medieval chronicles and travel narratives are like this. There's a lot that is factually true, and then there are a lot of myths thrown in to create a certain effect. And of course, this is very engaging. This is very entertaining. You know, this is Marco Polo's personal experience, and his experience is really at the center of this work. It's about how he, as a Western Christian, views all of these different lands. And that's, I think, the way that this book probably should be approached. What struck me from the very beginning was the number of miracles cited in Marco Polo's travels. So my favorite, for example, is this lake at the Abbey of St. Lawrence in Georgia. And in this lake, there are usually no fish. But during Lent, there's an abundance of fish. And the fish, there's so many fish throughout Lent. And then when Lent ends, the fish disappear. I thought it was a great miracle. And there are other miracles too. I don't want to recount all of them. And of course, there's a lot of description about the landscape, the narrow mountain passes, the caves. There's descriptions of precious stones, lapis lazuli, chalcedony, cloths, and the trade in colorful cloths. Zoroastrians are referred to as fire worshippers. They're never called Zoroastrians. There's some discussion about these fire worshippers who are constantly keeping this one flame going for centuries, and the way that they keep it going is by taking fire from other fire temples to keep this one flame burning perpetually. And I know that these are the Zoroastrians, but they are presented as fire worshippers, despite it being a monotheistic religion. But what I found the most important in this section was the introduction to the Mongols, who Marco Polo refers to as the Tartars. People in the 13th century were very terrified of the Mongols. The Mongols were a series of nomadic tribes that united under a great Khan, and Genghis Khan was the first of these great Khans. And when Marco Polo, with his father and uncle, went to China, the great Khan was Kublai Khan. Now, Kublai Khan is in chapter 3, so we'll be talking about that next week. But Marco Polo already sets the stage by describing the Mongols as this group that no other empire expected. The Muslims and the Christians, the Latin Christians, the Orthodox Christians, they'd been fighting forever. But suddenly there's this group of people that nobody recognizes. Who are these people? They are great horsemen, they are great archers, they're seen as being ruthless, although Kublai Khan is supposedly the least ruthless of the past 3 or 4 Khans. Marco Polo says he's the greatest, and of course he would. According to his travels, he was a diplomat in Kublai Khan's court for 17 years. So, you know, he seems to have had a pretty good experience there. So I'll just read you what Marco Polo has to say about the Kublai Khan here, and then we can talk about him more next week. Now, it happened in the year of Christ's incarnation, 1187, that the Tartars chose a king to reign over them, whose name in their language was Genghis Khan, a man of great ability and wisdom, a gifted orator, and a brilliant soldier. After his election, all the Tartars in the world, dispersed as they were among various foreign countries, came to him and acknowledged his sovereignty, and he exercised it well and honorably. What more shall I tell you? The number of Tartars who rallied round him was past belief. When Genghis Khan saw what a following he had, he equipped them with bows and their other customary weapons and embarked on a career of conquest. And I assure you that they conquered no less than 8 provinces. He did not harm the inhabitants or despoil them of their goods, but led them along with him to conquer other nations. Then, when he had amassed such a multitude of followers that they covered the face of the earth, he made up his mind to conquer a greater part of the world. So this is where we are in the travels. We're introduced to the Mongols. We're introduced to some of the practices of the Khans. There are different Khans. There's a Khan of the Levant, and then of course there's the Great Khan. So it seems that each of the nomadic groups has their own Khan, and then there is one on top of all of them. That's my understanding of how the Mongols were organized, but we will see more later. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.